Video đã có thật đấy. Thì đấy.
Lama namla Nyere Kansala Gyope Chiro Nabatinjela Gondro Dele Kiata Tetani Datini Samba Sancho Choda Tokine Simbarkyo Sitini Matudan Mahile.
Good afternoon, all my Dharma friends, those near and far. Please generate bodhicitta is your motivation for listening, and now we will continue.
Oh, Daddy, that subject ni Gabana, then Tondam, de la Nyamya the Jitap ni, the Nyamya then Rosonda, Jitap there, Nipa Jitap Lane, Sonda, Gano, Jitap Rio, Jitap Malam, Jimmy Pip, Jita, Sona Tsokin, Himi Lab the Chair, Korachukon, Mada Temdrete. Nyangin de pa nyangin de pe nyangin de pe tang be tim jong zam zong se da kana de ser lam je na wa tham ji ko je ji tem re le pe so so dre song ta te ni wan so so dre te ni wan so la so te Guru Rinpoche song na ni Dorje Drakpo te ri te ne te ta nga so ke no Jamgon Kongtrul Lodro Thaye ke man ra na na nyam ya le dang wi ji thap do si ta nga so nyam ya de ji thap ni te tu jan de me ba nyam ji man ri kar do nyam ya de ji thap ni gong ya yo ri 강게 전화 냠진 리차도 냠자의 지섭서야 메리 당가서 람잠 값서 다다가 값서 냠자의 지섭서 콘나바 라마 까든지 남바 콘나베 가서라 가서 처치니 그때 람다 야 람베네 장주 여바께라면서 동급이잖니 야 코난 거 토라마도 때 람서 장도서 메리 때 산이 람장니 값서라 바 Titolo Pandinjo Jamato made it and the Tatanga Lamjani Kaps and Yamja the Jitamika who go it. Nyamja the down with Jitop down with Jitop down, Nandraga Chuta, Chila, Ding Muso, Megimpa, that Terry, Nyamja Zena, Chibari, Jitop Zena, Chibari, Do Herjana, Dodo Lolo Pat Zayana, Mubog Chutamji, Demi Jumanawamato. Dimban Zamba Nawa and Zabate, I hear you go part, the data Tela Yichitawani Seni Mari. Tela Yichimazi song called. Nazo Tela Yichita One Tondam Ganelo Tela Yi Michi, the Tenibalangas on Yichi Gosa de Chiro maybe, Yi Michi Gosa, Tangas of Chidoko, and Donna. That take a problem in the Gangaso, Yichi Gosa, one Dembatelanga, so Yichiro Homata, Katsina. Te katsi hina yichiro homa pa tazu di to de pa te koranso kyokche tan ne pa trin ro koranso den te tham je ta je thop ta nyamya ni ka ka so ti ngo bo tham je pa hye go demi joma ta ti ngo bo tham je pa hye nang wi chu tham ji nang zam ri ma dong wo le ma zhe ba gon zhe ji chu tham ji wo le ma zhe ba Then go Dorje Samjarangi Sangha Galam Chertamna, Jankorgarangi, the Power the Pamogarangi, the Chertamna, Lana Mepari, Tematamna, Demi Jumanangi. That time you go for the Madapare, Panhandrina. Did the Pak Hexadu, Rangi, Comelo, Tower, someone the Jordoli, Choraka Mugozeti, Lamb Cortito. Tangal the Gomdo Samsi called Lamb Cote, young Bog Nello, young Benello Tongas on Don Zamdu, young Benello, the Koshok Chandra. Ding Usala Mijimba, Sayarjan Namata, Megan, Trunger Nawa, Malam Tawa, Juji Temdra Sopale, lower the Nawa, Jumatawa, lower the Nawa, Jumatawa. The Juma, the Jumaga Pep, Jitaki, and Kora Jumatawa, Mepa Yupar Nawa, Mayortawa. Mayorlanga, so turn the call it, Mambo, Yerda, Miguel and Trawana. Now, Dimbar Madrop, Dimbar Madropa, Malam the Jumatawa. Migjatawa, Sana Kana Migiba, Nawa the Trakatawa. Sir, Na Kana Migiba, Novo. Chula Hina, Hinero, Tela Hingoya Yomari. Jikina Hina, Hineri, Hinchasaya, Bit Dokari in the Hinchasaya, the woods and the Chula Hina, Hineri, Gambo Bagason, Lamrim, Lamrim Jintawana, Chula Hina, Hineri, Jikina Hina, Hineri, Himbaru, Hinchari Kits at the Salary. The Hincha the Genima, Sana Kana Migi, Nawa Trakata, Ego. Tinda Timber Naya, Tona Mepa, Treasure from Chertawa. Nala Rangi Matop Melona Zunita Minang Kirian Charwa Kirian Nason Charkori Charia de Yagal Charto Mazandokan Hawal and Charne Tortogo Mari, they Dinzang Nawar Langason Trondokano. Nang Choko, Nawa, the Sotaka Kango told, but Nawa Kona Demi the Pachesona, Deniko Nawa Kungopotam, the Karayan, but the Sani Dindoti, Narogan Nawas and Charkora, Mina Kirian Charo, Trupata with the Demi, the Pay Jita, Sombartaki, Gosam G, Jetar, Nuken. Jorpe number ka le so le soreva mayemba sonam je gon thaye par thaye par jokpa jok zup cho chimbo sa khen si da de sonam ge cho gang thap thap me ji sonam ge cho me me ji ge cho da de de mi joma ta wa gom so na toni ge ta wa me ge cho sa ro ko chimbo sa ro ko me ji del de mare na me ji sonam ge cho de sa go le de 나로바 그 손에 손이 돈 찌와메 바마도 바 손이 힘든 판로는 라와마제 나로바 송달레텔로 바가 나로바라 소데 사도 걸리다 뒤전도 메방아 소 총은에 사 송거를 보지 소 총총 사탐나 되게 소남 첨보 저는 걸 나서 따와 뭐도 저도 자와 가래 소남 그 초사부터 드드장부터 벌 데티는 나서 따와 또 더하 말이 소남 그 초를 사 나서 digong ring hundro te yo dekpa yabor jangtamna di dekpa de pha thang ro hel tama sepa na ye den ko na rangi ke so ne lo ke ta wa nga de jor ne re ta wa to ne ta wa mo to jo ke parchi che hyu de nga zo ko sonam ke so sa mi ki dekpa jang mi ki ma ge wa to ba de so chhnang ke dimbar jan de de so parchi chi ar de yin sa cha ke parchi se ko ma nga so ta wa mo to jo ma ke parchi se ko ma ton ro ke parchi se ko ma Nyawayada Satsaga Dog Satsaga Yinka Kalo Jar Sekoma. So Deba Jamto, Sonag Soma Samatola Tina, Tea Party Chekurido, Tete Hako Goli. Nanga Karri the Hakoya, the Kachemborida, Yagari, the Doarida. Malasanola Chimato, Nanga, Nagzamar Zoton, the Yinzamazoya Lehawari. Yinzamazo Mataki, the Zama Tondate, Nagajula Sancho Semda, Tonikatawa Tomatum, Nagzamazo Mato, Yinzamazogona. Zoya choni mere den de chi de nga so ga chu ge wa drop ga zo nga cho chimbo sa ge de an himi joma ta wa se so nam ge cho sa ge de la hin ba me wa don nan zamba mi na ta wa yin song le ta da sa ji khen ba ge ran zamba de din zen de hyo ni ma hin ba mi na joma nga de la himi joma ta wa hi ba na khor sam yong da ge ta be lam de che de Pongkan Jimchi Dupon Corbe Chukane, Nyomba Tamchi, Nelo Derki Nyingpo Ni, Linchi, Maripala Tin, Duzi, Nyonga so, Lover Teme, Nyoka Tata Higa, Tani Lam, Madabe Jola, Jinja, Ngambanda, Sebe, Temre Yina, Juni, Longjong, Tangazo, Tambo, the Hada Temre Yina, Juni, Tangazo, Ta Tepachimbo, the Sanganyamnesia, the Sam of Tonkamanda, Timigan, the Chokimbo, Sam of Tonkoli. Tambo Kanisha the Maripala Tin and the Zitan to Jimchi, Temre Yina Juni, Lok Jonda. Then it tepang Gadu Karenga, the Lodog sort of Long Jungdog sort of gone with you. Then it takes a gonsona, then it watch him about the Sanganyamnesia, the Pinto Chimbon. Tangazo take Hira some of Tomata, they ta Yan Joborilla and Chongo. Chong to take a Lamgag Sanam Machu, down Masala Maleb. That the days are in the Cotta, Yela Juni, Longjong down, Corva, the Maripa, and Selin, T. Nyomo, Simjin, Duzit, the Sebe Leni, Seba, Namki, Mezo Kimchi, drove the Chorva Jawanga Jenga Gunness, Tate, Nazo, Demdran Colon, and the He Yara, Tata, Seban Colon, Mombe, then Songa Tedale, and Yomon, some Yom, Sada Gonga, Pinson, Corva, there. Wama temre nyingbo le sombo sa da gonga ze ta te ha ko ro gonga le sa sa le gonga sombo da le nin jong de ni le dan jong dan le jang som jong se pon ko lo de de ni yang dong course nga zo ten ru kon do ko se ba de ko wa de ten ru kon ne se ban ko lo de la na ta do go ji de kan de ko ka da hi ba da dang bo de ga go re de Sanjay Kata Demba Sonya, Sepen Yang le, Render, Deba Hava, Tarpa Tamba, Jawangane, and Gashanga. 다데 로도그 처더 삼노 동로거 세방가네 제왕가바 소 인라 주니 로데 도제 마르파 폰데베 드마 데니 넘버 사게 다베 템드 템드 jonzamyenla 동담 랑이 오서 집자 집지지 템드레 돈 담봉 오버데레 오서 집자데 집지레 템드레 대자 남베 독차잠데 예드시 자 인라 주니 람드 소 덴동이라 주니 레버 다바나바 주니 디야다 람 레버 섬지 설때니 주니 제 설던 차르게 템드레 인레 주니 이게 고니 케바 람제 고니 케바 레버 고니 케바 다바나바 주니 설던 차르바든 심주레 손자버 심주레 인라 주니 세자도 다바나바 주니 딩기 설전 남바 지 지선 도는 콘데 람섬지 추탄지 땡전 전종은 나와 자연제 대라 랑이 동바니레 덴동서 잡아메레 파 도나 대 탐지 고 덴동의 잡아 오마리 송거 다지 인도 파바류 강서 팀종 마이베 충가 요바 마이 대서 동니마도 바 충가 요바 마이 소서 동다 팀종니라마도去引诱嘛的，从当爸爸那这个公巴做到我嘛上，公巴做到的了，今次太大个事儿，咱们就那话他们讲，咱们就那话他们就更加点着了啦，来呗，他把多把咱们就他妈的去过去本，多把的喇嘛点把那咱们的点着些的定用，这个定的正用是呀的，定着是这个定的正着是呀。去他们这个得了嘛都点着了嘛都这个有嘛的送的东西到我那现着点着老是就把这些有嘛这些送个得是都是刚才着
Lama tene tsam.
拉嘛点把那咱们的杨大本这个俺的嘛这就把都送一当不拉嘛点把咱们的点着这个是吧拉嘛点丢呢就这么拉嘛把템저 티니 고잠데데 상마제제 버데 띵종 코나는 로홀 야다 템저 세야데 저그 템저 야보르 세게나 텔라티네 템저 야가다 데 야가는 용고데 데니 덴달리 찐 템저 상이 용조 조버데라 야다 번데 방한다 마제제 버데 담치 드베 저다 데 조스 저베 찐제 템저 탐지 렉버 손바 히드 드베 차르다 연다 돈이 라보전 저버는 저르젠 힘들래 히브트엔 定见真正定见这份中完的상定见这份中的상제제送跟主的基本上么的刚跟的那样当通话的群通的对边习惯通送他这个对边习惯这个通的意思但这哈国家的没这个属的送就的哈国呢去的对边习惯的呢상제是要的这个通的意思说啊
We left off this morning having finished the section on meditation, the practice of meditation on absolute truth as a way of gaining progress in our interaction with external appearances. The second part of this section concerned with using absolute truth to progress in this way is concerned with post-meditation. And first of all, in Guru Rinpoche's words in the root text, in post-meditation, bring appearances to the path through the 8 analogies of magical illusion, such as dreams and so forth, and through a vast accumulation of merit, and through freedom from craving. All things of samsara are interdependent. But nirvana is also mere interdependence. Therefore, all of the appearances that make up the path are interdependent, and therefore progress on the path depends upon arranging the interdependence of causes and conditions in a good direction or a good way. So in other words, everything samsaric is interdependent, therefore everything of nirvana is interdependent, and therefore the path is interdependent, therefore the proper pursuit of the path consists of the skillful or correct employment of interdependence. So that means that we're going to have to get into interdependence. When you arise from meditation into post-meditation, as previously in meditation, it's still important to not fixate on appearances. That is, what you see, what you hear, and so forth, as real. So, first of all, the first thing you're doing in post-meditation is continuing as much as you can the understanding gained in meditation that appearances, sounds, and thoughts are mere appearances and unreal. In this regard, Guru Rinpoche advises us to make use of the 8 analogies for magical illusion. Now, one thing that needs to be understood about these is these analogies are not simply alternative illustrations. Each of them brings out or analogizes a specific attribute or aspect of unreality. So the first analogy is dreams. And in dreams, because our minds are, as it's put, doubly bewildered, our ongoing bewilderment is supplemented by the bewilderment of being asleep. Because our minds are doubly bewildered, we mistake what are not external objects or external appearances, or in fact appearances to the senses at all, as such. So in dreams, we think we are seeing and hearing things and people that we're not. We think we're going places that we're not. I can't talk as fast as he does, so this is going to take longer than he did, because he talks as fast as an auctioneer. So the first of the 8 is dreams, and we call it an analogy because because we're talking about ordinary experience here, which we normally think of as real, but in fact it's unreal as dreams, and one way in which it is dreamlike is that what we're seeing and hearing isn't out there. That's the easiest way to put it. The second analogy for illusion or unreality is magical illusion. And in the case of magical illusion, like when an illusionist causes you to see something that is not there, what you see is caused by the skillful creation of circumstances. a combination of causes, which in this case would mean the things that are being used by the illusionist, and conditions, which would mean things like perspective and so on, and what's not there and so on. In short, all of the things that make up really good illusionist performances or stage magic and so on. So the point of the second analogy, magical illusion, is that appearances are unreal, like magical illusions, in that they're not what they seem to be. They are simply the interdependent coming together of various causes and conditions. In the case of magical illusion, it's intentionally done by the illusionist. In the case of appearances, it is an unfortunate product of our bewilderment. The next one is, it's not exactly an optical illusion. It's something that you see that isn't what you think it is. It's not like it's like, for example, you're looking in the distance and you think you see a person, but it's actually a tree stump. Or you're looking in the distance and you think you see a tree, but it's actually a person. So it's an optical misperception, I think, is better. And things are like optical misperceptions in that it is the appearance to you of something that does not exist. So something that does not exist seems to exist. The next analogy is a mirage. A mirage, of course, is when you seem to see water, for example, in a dip in the road in hot weather. But there's no water there. So, but if you say you don't see something that looks like water, that's not true either. You do at that moment see something that looks like water, but there's no water. So that's an example of something that appears without existing. So there are slight differences between each of these. The next one is an echo. An echo is an example of something that actually has no location. The location depends upon the perspective of the person who hears it. It may seem to have a certain location or origin, but it actually doesn't. So the echo is neither internal to the hearer, so totally unconnected to the environment, nor is it external to the hearer. So it's neither outside nor inside. The next one is a city of Gandharvas. Gandharvas, usually, sometimes they're a class of semi-divine being. Sometimes it refers to bardo beings, but in any case, a city of Gandharvas will seem to consist of actual architecture and inhabitants, like an actual supporting environment or structure or structures and inhabitants. But there's nothing really there. The next one is perhaps easier to understand. It's a reflection in a mirror. A reflection in a mirror is something that appears but has no essential nature. Having no essential nature means that what you see in the mirror is a function of light and especially perspective. So because it's a function of perspective, it's not really in or on the mirror. It's not like looking at a painting where the painting is there would one person, two people look at into the same mirror from slightly different angles, they're going to see very different things. And so the appearance appears to each of them. Each of them does see what they see, but what they see has no essential nature, which means it has no essential presence in the mirror or on the mirror. And then the final one is magical emanations. And emanations are things that, while not non-existent appearances, that can nevertheless display a potentially infinite variety. And the significance of this is that the appearances we experience in our bewilderment are not uniform or limited in content. They can be infinitely various. So those 8 are the 8 analogies given by the Buddha for the unreality of things. So the instruction in post-meditation is to view things as like that, or like those. And at the same time, while maintaining in post-meditation this understanding of unreality, at the same time you want to use the opportunity of post-meditation to gather the accumulation of merit as widely and as much as you can. Widely means using every means at your disposal. So using your 3 gates, your body, your speech, and your mind. And it means to, without restricting yourself to one avenue of the accumulation of merit, such as, well, I'll give to the poor, but I'm sure as hell not going to do mandala offerings, or I'll do mandala offerings, but I'm sure as hell not going to give to the poor, or that kind of thing. Don't restrict yourself. Take every opportunity within reason and in accordance with your resources to gather the accumulation of merit. Because the reason for this, among other things, is there are endless opportunities to gather the accumulation of merit. Literally endless. Every time you hear something of someone doing something good, if you rejoice in that, you're gathering the accumulation of merit, especially if you dedicate that rejoicing to the awakening of beings. Every time you see something fine, if you mentally offer that to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, you will accumulate the same merit that you would by physically offering it, which you can't do because you don't own it. You can look at beautiful flowers and you can offer them without picking them out of the ground, especially if they don't belong to you. That would not be the accumulation of merit. That would be something else. So the point is, there are never-ending opportunities to accumulate merit. Obviously, the famous ways, like the performance of prostrations, offering mandalas, offering food, whatever, but loads and loads of little things too. And it's the little things that matter. Because if you do every little thing you can, that habit is going to grow. That habit is going to accrue, and it's eventually going to overpower our bad habit of stinginess and selfishness. If you get into the habit of seeing everything fine, or fine music you hear, everything as an offering to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, your fixation, your selfishness is going to be diminished over time. So be impartial and completely open-minded with regard to ways to gather the accumulation of merit. And But again, make sure this is integrated with your understanding that all of this is illusory. So even as you accumulate merit, be without fixation on or craving for the reality of the merit of being accumulated. In short, bring the accumulation of merit in post-meditation to the path by being free of reification of any of the three aspects. The three aspects are the person accumulating the merit, who doesn't really exist, the merit accumulated, which doesn't really exist, and the beneficiaries, all beings to whom you're dedicating it, to whom you're giving it, who also don't really exist. So don't reify any of those three. Now, the next issue that Guru Rinpoche addresses concisely in the root text and that Jamgon Lodro Thaye explains a little more length, which Lama went through speaking and commenting quite with extraordinary rapidity and magnificent elocution, is interdependence. And the first thing Lama said was elocution sena the long nang de jopo dakpo song to the wa dela elocution ki yunten segi ngarap ne in longpa de ngarap pa jongi wa data jongi
오 jobo loya de
jopo loya tang sopo loya dana kesha laptang de sopo dakpo rembar laptang de ngmang not so ki chime ki tutsu yena de tetsu chidu jongi or tensong jongi no samari. I was explaining elocution, which is something that used to be taught, but no longer is in our culture. The point that Guru Rinpoche was making, so you understand the digression that is going to have to ensue here, is that the path depends upon the arrangement of interdependence, which naturally segues from his previous point about the accumulation of merit, because that's what you're doing. When you accumulate merit, you're actually arranging good interdependence. But the reason why the path is interdependent is because samsara and nirvana, as we think of them, are interdependent. Now, Lama commented at this point, we don't talk a great deal about the 12 links of interdependence, largely because the Buddha spoke most about this in the presentation of the teachings of the common vehicle, and it's less emphasized in the Mahayana and the Vajrayana. So we have a tendency, especially when Dharma is being taught sort of in a less systematic way, to skip it and not know what it is. But this is actually a problem for us, because if you don't understand interdependence, you cannot understand emptiness. If you don't understand interdependence, you cannot understand the reason for making correct moral choices. So interdependence is actually, while we may disparage the presentation of it as a matter of the common vehicle, we shouldn't, because it's actually really important. So since you haven't heard about it, perhaps, here goes. The Buddha's first presentation of interdependence was the interdependence of samsara, which also is called progressive interdependence. Not progressive in a good way, but like a progressive disease. And this is the mechanism, the repeated mechanism of how it is that Buddha nature is concealed by our veils. So to the extent that you understand interdependence, you will understand what veils, concealment, obscurations are. If we start with the nature of things, the actual nature of things, our nature, it is what we call Sugata-garbha, Buddha nature, which is perfect. There's nothing wrong with that. Somehow, what we are is concealed from us. And what conceals it is everything we call the things of affliction. The things of affliction basically consist of three main types of phenomena. Kleshas, or mental afflictions, karmas, or afflicted actions, and well, ignorance, in this context, ignorance is also kleshas. So let's just say kleshas and karmas for now. We'll get to a third category in a minute. So, first thing is, what hides or encapsulates or conceals our Buddha nature is two things. Our kleshas, our mental afflictions, and our karmas, our actions, what we do. Because everything we do leaves an imprint, which is obscuring or distorting. Now those things, when you put those two things together, kleshas and karmas, they result in three aspects of afflicted experience. And these are skandha, dhatu, and ayatana. Skandha means a heap or group. So the 5 skandhas are the 5 aggregates. Forms, sensations, perceptions, mental formations, actually mental and other formations, and consciousnesses. And each of those 5 is an aggregate. So none of them is one thing. And the point is that the aggregates that make up a person are aggregates, not one thing. The dhatus and ayatanas in this context are primarily the sense faculties and the sense objects and the sense consciousnesses that seem to go between them. When you just talk about the faculties and the objects, it's 12, and we call them ayatanas. And when you talk about all 18 of them, then it's the dhatus, or the elements or realms of sense interaction. So that's what we experience. What we are is these afflicted aggregates, and we experience this interaction between these sense faculties, the 5 physical senses and the mental faculty, their associated consciousnesses, and their respective objects. And it's all afflicted because it's all the result of kleshas and karmas. But how how does this start? And you have to say does this in the context of interdependence, not did this. Because it starts again and again. How does it start? It starts with what is called connate ignorance. Connate ignorance is simply not knowing. So you could call it passive or an absence of knowing. So it's avidya. Vidya means knowing, awareness, and means no, none, not there. So not knowing, that's how it starts. So the starting point is not an active misperception. That's the second step. The starting point is the absence of authentic perception or authentic recognition. Because if there were authentic recognition, there wouldn't be a mistake. But that causes the second link, which is mental formation and so on. So the formation, to keep it simple, the formation of active misapprehensions and so forth. So all of these various causes and conditions, and we're going to go into which are which, are impure and distorting and lead to more and more further and further distortion and bewilderment. But they're all adventitious or secondary. And adventitious or secondary in this case means that we have to remember the difference between Buddha nature and not knowing. Not knowing is adventitious to, it's external to, it's other than Buddha nature. Not knowing is the problem, the first problem. So ignorance or not knowing. And then the full process of it involves, as you know, 12 links. Now, of these links, three, and this isn't, we're not taking them in order yet. That would be too easy. Three are kleshas, because you remember we saw that it's kleshas and karma and actually suffering that is the third element. Ignorance, that absence of knowing, that is here, as I mentioned, considered a klesha. Craving, sepa, or it's craving, or it's almost like addiction, but we'll say craving. And undertaking, but undertaking, it's weird. In English, lenpa means to take, but that sounds like an action, a karma, rather than a klesha. It means the when you make a bad choice that you've made before, you can feel yourself in the process of making it. And there's a moment before you make it where you lose the control not to make it. That's sepa, that's craving. And then you fall. You make the bad choice. Which sounds like an action, but it's actually a klesha, because in between the action, and this is a very kind of, it's a tricky point about the interdependence. In between the action and the craving, there's a withdrawal of the will you thought you had not to do it. That's acceptance or undertaking. Anyone who struggled with any particularly bad habit will recognize this process. There's the craving, and then there's actually giving in to the craving. So we could say giving in, actually, for Lingpa. So those three, ignorance, craving, and giving in, those three of the 12 are kleshas. And they in their turn, perform two karmas, or actions. These are formation, which is the formation of active misapprehensions, among other things. Formation of active misapprehensions on the basis of not knowing. And sipa. Sipa is such a funny word because it's very easy, we could just fudge it and go back to the Sanskrit bhava, but it means, it has so many meanings. Bhartaramsha used to say, because everything is possible, we call it possibility. Often we translate it as existence. Sometimes becoming, which is how it often gets translated by people like me who think they're clever in the context of the 12 links. But the funny thing about it is the first thing you think of when you think of the Tibetan word sipa is possible. Possibility. Possible as an adjective, possibility as a noun. So it's the possibility, but in this case, since it's an action or a karma, it is becoming. It is actually becoming something. So I think we get to them in order. And then the seven, so that's 5, 3 kleshas and 2 actions. The 7 remaining ones are called the 7 bases of the utter affliction of birth. So in other words, that the 7 things that are not exactly just kleshas and not exactly just karma. Sometimes they're called them suffering, but these are consciousness, that's 1. Name and form, that's 2 things, but it counts as 1. Because you can think of it as the aggregates. The aggregate of form is the form part, and the other 4 are sometimes called the 4 names. The ayatanas, or the sense doors of the senses, you could say, the 6 ayatanas. Contact, so that's when the senses actually engage in contact with their objects. Sensation, which is of course also one of the aggregates. Birth, and then aging and death. So those, out of order but in their threefold classification, are the 12 links. 3 kleshas, 2 karmas, and 7 bases of afflicted birth. Now, but those 7 bases of afflicted birth perpetuate the process because they in turn produce the 3 kleshas, which then perform the 2 karmas, or actions, which then produce a further 7 bases of afflicted birth, and so on. Which is why Jamgon Lodro Thaye says, which is why it turns like a wheel and is like the chicken and the egg. You can't say which came first. When we talk in theory, we say it starts with ignorance, but ignorance, why is there that absence of knowing? Because of previous and so forth. So therefore, in his essence, in his middle way, essence of interdependence, which is one of Arya Nagarjuna's treatises. From the three arise the two. From those two arise the seven. But from those seven, again, arise the three. And this is the wheel of, again, becoming, existence, possibility. This is how you, because he's probably speaking to or writing for a king, this is how you circle again and again. So, those are the 12 links out of order, but all complete, of samsara. The second aspect of interdependence is, that's called progressive interdependence. The second aspect of interdependence is reversed interdependence. And so what we call peace, liberation, the transcendence of becoming or existence, the far distant transcendence of that, or nirvana, happens or arises through interdependence as well. The last of the 12 links is aging and death. Aging and death is caused by the one that precedes it, which is birth. Birth is the cause or the condition for aging and death. So aging and death is stopped by stopping birth. If becoming, which is what precedes birth, is stopped, then birth will stop. So in order to stop aging and death, you have to stop birth. In order to stop birth, you have to stop becoming. And so the way to do it is to go back through each link and stop the one before the one you want to stop. And which means ultimately that what you have to destroy, what you have to, sorry, what Jamgon Kongtrul Lodro Thaye says, I mean, what you end in, so it's kind of like the dead end or the end that has to be caved in. It's almost like a pun, because puk means a cave and dip means cave in the verb sense. So if the cave that has to be caved in the end is ignorance. As long as there's ignorance, there's going to be formation. If there's formation, there's going to be consciousness. If there's consciousness, there's going to be the senses. If there's the senses, there's going to be contact. If there's contact, and so on. So, finally, if you destroy ignorance, all of the stains or veils are purified. And that is what is called mere pure interdependence. Now, why do we call it merely pure interdependence? Because it's the interdependence of removing the veils, starting with ignorance, but it doesn't change what they have been concealing, which is absolute truth. Absolute truth, natural luminosity, has no, it is not produced by any causes and conditions, nor does it produce any. So the nature of things, absolute truth, luminosity, is beyond interdependence. So when we say that nirvana is interdependence, it means the attainment of nirvana is a result of the causes and conditions of the path which remove these 12 links. But the nature that is revealed is not interdependent. So, in describing this, we have, because there is a process of the removal of these veils, these 12 links, we talk about that process and we call it path. And because there is a state of the removal, subsequent to the removal of those, we talk about those and we call that state, we call it result. And then where we start, in the impure state in this context, we call it the ground or the starting point. So in the context of where we are starting, we call the 12 aspects of interdependence the 12 links that are the root of existence or becoming, the root of samsara, you could say. And in the context of the path, we call them the 12 branches, or you could say branches of the truth, or the true meaning, or discoveries of the truth. And in the context of the fruition, we call it 12-fold purity. But this is, Jamgon Lodro Thaye says, a concession to context, 3 different contexts. The nature that is veiled, that is revealed, and then unveiled does not change and is not interdependent. So therefore, in the Samgiti, in the singing the names of Manjushri Tantra, it says, you pull out the root of existence, its 12 branches or 12 links. You hold the 12-fold purity. You therefore have the manner of the Four Noble Truths. So, in short, all things of identifiable things of samsara, nirvana, and the path are mere interdependent appearances. And therefore, because they are interdependent, they are empty. The terms interdependent and empty always refer to the same thing. They're not synonyms per se, because they have different meaning, but they have the same referent. So if a given phenomenon is the referent of the ascription or adjective empty, it is also interdependent. If it is interdependent, it is also empty. This, if you understand this, you understand why emptiness is not nothingness. In fact, things can only appear because they are empty. And their non-existence is proven not by their emptiness, but by their appearance, by their interdependence. Therefore, Arya Nagarjuna famously wrote, because there is nothing that is not interdependent, there is nothing that is not empty. Therefore, all of the appearances of the path, or depend upon interdependence. So, those who wish to achieve liberation should, from the very beginning of their path, in each step or phase of the path, carefully arrange the interdependence, the right causes and conditions. Because each, just as with any other form of progressive or interdependence, each link, each stage is going to depend upon the one before it. So, for example, the path starts with choosing a guru. The interdependence you establish when you choose a guru, the interdependence you establish in how you interact with that guru. If they're good, if your choice and interactions are good, it will be very, very difficult for fatal problems to arise. But if they're bad, it will be very, very hard for you to fix it. From that point onward, until you reach the final fruition, the ultimate and final genuine fruition, Buddhahood, everything you do on your path, in your practice of holy Dharma, is a matter of interdependence. So therefore, be careful about the causes you generate and the conditions with which you supplement them. Be careful in every aspect of your path. And be sure that every aspect of the interdependence of your path is the best that you can arrange at that time. And this will bring tremendous benefit. That care will bring tremendous benefit for yourself and others. In his friendly letter to a friend, people translate it differently. Anyway, the Shi Jing by Arya Nagarjuna wrote to a king. This interdependent origination is the most profound and precious aspect of the treasury of the Buddha's words. Anyone who sees this correctly sees the Dharma and sees the Tathagata, sees the Buddha. Well, awesome.
Then kana nyomdro the Tawanda yun the main.
So we're halfway through the afternoon. Do you have questions?
How many people have questions?
Just
if not many people, we will do continue.
If there's a number of you, put up your hands, all who have questions.
Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah.
You said you had questions? No? Okay. Too many questions. Okay. So then let's take some questions.
Yes.
Because we're moving on to a whole different topic.
Yeah.
Don't be polite. Somebody say yes. Okay.
Thank you, Lama. These teachings are just amazing. I'm gonna try and share something without crying. I'm gonna cry.
Okay.
And I'm sharing this because I hope that other people will learn from my mistake. I work at Rikers Island, which is a horrible jail in New York City. And I just don't have words to describe what that place is like. And then we had the election, and suddenly I just saw everything. It felt like I had no place to run that would be safe. And what I realized over the last several months is that I made a big mistake, which is I thought that, and I didn't do this consciously, but I did it. I was living under an illusion that I could keep samsara in jail, and that outside of that there was something that was better. But what I realized is that there is no place that is actually better in samsara. Samsara is samsara. You can look away, you can pretend that it's not, you can, have a moment of happiness, but it won't last. And there's no place on earth that you can go or you can escape that. And you can't leave jail, you can't. And that was earth-shattering for me. And wow, it was like the ground fell out from under me. So, and my refuge is our refuge. It is the three jewels. There is no other refuge, which I know sounds basic, but it really is the case. And so my practice has been incredibly enriched by this really bad mistake that I made. I guess, and these teachings are so wonderful because having realized that there is no place to hide or run, I have to bring the path into post-meditation because there's no place for me to hide. So one of the questions that I have is, and I'm going to use these techniques, I'm so grateful for your teaching, but two of the things that have helped me before hearing these teachings, in addition to meditation, have been devotion. I mean, I need to remember my guru, because once you realize there's no place to hide, that is a refuge that you need all the time, not just in bad times, but all the time. And the other thing is how to be in the world that we live in when the bottom has dropped out from under it. And for me, it's a recognition that I don't have all the answers. I don't know necessarily the best way to arrange causes and conditions, but I take from Gyamtso Rinpoche a true belief, especially because of his own presence, that a loving mind, if I can maintain a loving mind in the world, then that is something that is going to be good. And I don't know how that manifests, but that is going to be good. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about devotion and love in bringing that into post-meditation. Thank you.
Zawa dere da ngoma ke de kong ke leka lesa de sheri dopore. De ngoma ke morong samsong da nga leka lesa dopore do nga chamo tong do nyensong ra o resha. Ina nga nangla do de ne te chipo da do desa da chipo da do. Dona morong ke korwa la shemba da dong yang yapa ke tare. Da leka lesa de nyalwa daore, de shisha ne gotsare, Then none la do hores. Then the Jamgon Kongtrul the election Jungzane data de pompo dukpo de Jungne. Then it Zamaka Nyawa Chik Nyawa Satin the long dao Jungzong. Then it more shine gosons. Da korwa seva de ngensong chipu mar. Tori ki dawayam korwa is. Karejne tempo mentos, takpa mentos. Dona yipsa dan drosa kame. Chapsa control somato kamendo. Then it so ki chipo zo tup nayang. Then it yuring negimaris. Tuk is. That day in the Lama ke Songpa Nanjian nga so tsama ke Juchen Tendra Yapo Dreko to Detso Tramoshi Mes. In Gangshe Sene, Tata Ngatso ke Sonlo Tongwayana, Yipsa Dang, Korwa Le Drusa, Kam Mena, Lama Takpa Den Godos. The Ngoma Mo Samson, Dungaldu Lama Den. Then it chipo yodo, then Lama Madena Didos. That de Pengamare Hakotsais. Dugdu Nare, Chidu Nare, Lama Takpa Drengodos. Lama Chidu Lama Madena, Dugdu Lama Drenji Yongamare. Then it Nisana, then it Nichane Gajana Mosheke Song Song, then it Tutsu Nikma Katsu Yana. Then it Susuke Sem de Jamba na Nyingpo tang Gyamtso sem Manyamba chi zong tupna de rangi cho. Dona de ditso de lame mugu tang Gyamtso sem chepa de tso ke de tender drakpo tang la sopa songpa de tso rebes. Kandare.
Ta teri jorang ke tonda de ha kondo. Tonda de ha kondo. Nge sama ha koso chi tonda de ha kondo. Tonda sarpo ha kondo. Tearanri ngone tane nge ha koso chorang ke leka lesa tene masutse ke leka lekon le thokamari tendra kable osari ta che chorang ke kable jane mantun leka lekorte ten rawote ke kable jaya de ngone sanjo samatamji dada ke tsula sanjo samatamji ke leka ri mato le thokamari nga ke chongkhan seya de le chertang nga ke chongkhan seya de ha khira ko mi dubo ine ha ko nga chongkhan ro ma nge chongkhan leka yang le ma nyo 파다도 갑래 어사레데 마비데나 따다데 무슨 의성아 종칸은 용 로마며 데인데 백갑래 사리다 냐란 사할에 여반나게리 데나 다다게 되서라 당아서 도르도 홀에 다 도르 마탐지 쭈남 ঙ이로 뇨몽바 체르 동암 체르 레점레 마성 도르로데 도르마도 야른로야 히라요 말이요 조적데리 제가 내가 내지도 할래방에 툭지지 않아 간이셔고 나서 뭐만보게 쳔니 때 작갑래 자창 발라다 마리 파마 부지 발라다 다 때자가 갑래 때는 빼 동할 쳔보 용소서 야가 깨자시는 소소 라미세리게 차르기 경기 망보요 시리 다다 뜻을라 에나 더소데 동할세야데 강마리 다다데 동할데 냐와즈데 텔레자 잔저 동저 체리데 리 닌송섬다 라버데 덴로 토리섬나 데와 미 송는 가서 레짐드게 티나 히에코는 코르 동할까나 차기 잡아데 가서 혼로가 갑서 롭정 위코들 코르와라 토리섬나 데와 요망 닌송섬나 데와 요마 데는 코르와 갑지 쩨모나 데와 남의 요마인 송지데 닌송섬다 토리섬 가디 히에코는 거름 보지 데리 데와 메와데 가서 히제 텔레데는 임종리 쩨네 추골자 겨텀나 당원이 춘 남다리 줄을 젠로들이 당 코라세야데 현바 로야세야데 깔레 카보링 아서 빼 현차 첨부 차차리 토미네 타마 다다바도 현차 체르체는 로노고 도르로 할 데리 니네 섬니 자 라마디 두전 메바티야데 베케젠버리 가론 라마팅거리 도론 라마팅거리 난님치메와 라마팅탐나 가 라마팅탐나 가den히나 델라테 사토바디 줄을 제허리 삼니제 줄을 제허리 데리 Lama de Tunamia Tingo, Dedu Lama, Gadi Chidu Lama Meti, Dodin Hindu Lama Tia, de Lama Salam Yoya Mari, Della Lama Salam, Guru Rinpoche Song, Tang Dedu Allah Talan, Gatom de Orjipe Maso, Tandemo sona ala thala zon Gorumboji yogi. Gatombo so tazi tomdi na gito, and Gorumboji zor, Tudun Gorumboji job tokumari. Tujando meba lama tintam na teni, Yabo, Zanro, Nino, Garo, Doro, Lama train, Gardenia, Zana Lama Gardenia. Need don't have Medus told sona Lama Garden, some day he go around Homaga Lang about the Tapa Sanko, the Lama Garden, some. Giro Doro Lama train, some Golizo, Teddy Lama Namjota, Lama Napjopati and so on, the Teddy. So Teddy, Tata Guardian Moji Song Sancho, Sam Chipo, Chokando, Tejibo, Semna Nyarachi, Yabochi, Song Jete, take Choko. Sancho Sam Jula Chi, the Tambo, Onsa the Carreri, Onsa the Lama Garden. Then the Sancho Sam Tudian, the Gon Sancho Sam Yabo, the Guns of the Tonda Yuka Sancho Sam. Gomtamna, Tikadin the Onsa the Lamarawa. Sanje Tongung of the Lama Tal Tincho. Lama train the Tapartane left to call it. Then Narangi in the Mari, Lama train Latin. Tambo Yanning also Sanjo Sam Yori, the King in Bori. And also Lama La Martina, the Chimeval. Lama Latina, Lamjan, the Sanjo Sam Hakon. That teachable Choda, some Slapper the Tata Chonanga Leka Lechina. Nazo community Leka Le Sandawa. Mamanganan and Rolly Caps. Sancho Sam Yabo, he drew the Chiona, then he leka carena Cavlignon Togari. This is a Cavlignona, Lamsanko, Carcha Chinica, send the Jurjuton Togari. Lamsan Tele Jormatan, Cherin and Nima Checks Gini, Nima Dang Gini, send the Jurjuton Togari. Oh, no, Torindo. Ne Yabo Zumado, Zogam Simado, then Regmado, San Negatoni Zogju Jatago, they chew the Lama Garden, Sancho Sam Garden. Then the Sancho sent the Chesawuna, Mamanda Ropa Tesa Tokari. Tata then the Flapper the Zonkana Ropa Tesa Tokari. Zonkana and Chit Duku Zonkan, Dilomba the Zonkan in Sari Tindo. The Kabli Hugo Sari Mama Ball. And a Conazo Lenangate, Conazo Javanga Leg, Jurjumewa Latin, Zonkan and Rogutos on there. They are Flapper the Sambata Ginger Gom the Lega, Nima Regia Letum, Hal Lepa Lega, till Lap Chesa Lega made it. Then the Chukareki did not lap the chair or the Tela Sancho Sam gone. That Chorong Sancho Sam Yang Tabar Gom Yavuna, Chu Higo Mari Corans or take a taste, Sancho Sam Zewa take a pink order. Zewa the pay, Zela Drava Chimboli. Zewa say the Sancho Sam and Drava. Sancho Sam Zewa the Malapa Lama took this and Zewa the Magi Dani Parma Sona. Mone Zewa the teeth of Zewa Tritamna. Zewa the Tanya Omar, Zewa the pin talker, Sancho Sam Nubateri. Then the pin talker, Chonang Montu in the Delega letter with the gate chambori. Nana on the Nathan Shata the Trapsal, Lulu, Dugoli, Deji alone taste, Jugoli, Mato, Deji Loma, and Nazo Machata ball already. Also, Galebata, Zala, Gavlen Tigari. Then the tail of Tin, young Yanja Kale Kale Lega, the Montu in the le. Tundu Hill, then the Kale Kale Deltin and Corri Himba the part under. Corri Himba, the church had the Jona Lega Carelena, Magina Robavan, the Cable Lachimiri. They carry the dancing cakes. Dancing means then Cable Omarvata. Not so Cable Yon to Jitsawa Yonzote, dancing Latin young call it. Dancing the Sancho, dancing Hiki Hokia, the Sancho Sandro. Sancho Sem Nabani Latin, dancing King to Coro, round Dagi, round the Yinchi Panzambata, Dagi Yambata, Dagi Java, the Dive Yinchi Gomba, so Tony Taco Sancho Sem Gondro, dancing the Tsawani in the Mewa King to call it. Dancing the Hicks at the Cable and that Tito in the Sancho Sem Gomja, the Lama change at the Petsa Chamber, Yink Lega, Legoni, Lama Tina, the Sancho Sem Goya.
Then tendril.
Oh,
them chokes so trick but de la song.
Them drill like so tendry. Them drill talent, that them drill ten like what tenant takes her. Chona them drill the hack was yet any Toman good some. Did them drill the lipa, the lamte, Namki Chona Sanje Compom Matap part the tit them drill and Chungu Joma. That them drill the was and the and there's some the Trado, that Magawa and Naja Trado, and there's some the $10 Lama and then drink some, then drink my son some near a low topang in Barjana, them drinking bar in the Crow. Tata thing as Sanjo sent a gonzana, them drill lipak and goat and the Samsaria. Pay Messiba Hale, them drill telatin, Yaboramato, Dobor young Joma. Think only a hack in the morning. There it.
Well, yes. You understand correctly. You've got the point. As you mentioned in your question, you work currently in a place so horrific that almost no one else would be able to work there. I've never visited a jail or prison. I've only seen them depicted in films. But I imagine that given that human behavior is degenerating steadily, it must at this point really be quite literally hell on earth. And I suspect that American jails and prisons may in fact be among the worst. Your point, however, is very significant. That even outside of such hellish environments, there is no place for any of us to hide. We see how profoundly unhappy people can be now. It seems as though over the slightest family dispute or other problem, people are killing themselves all over the place. And so we have to understand, as you kind of indicated in your question, that while hell definitely is hell, it's definitely as bad as it is, that what we think of as states of relief or higher realms are in fact no solution and no lasting place of shelter. One of the things that you bring up in your question is how hard it is for all of us to really let go of the hope that we can make samsara a work. Everyone here understands, we all understand the point that samsara is disgusting. And that's why we use, for example, in our lineage prayer, the word disgust, shinlo. You know, that's like almost like saying nausea. And yet, as time goes on, it seems that people's craving, our unwillingness to let go of this hope that we can make it work, only coarsens. Which brings me to the next part of your question. Yes, one big factor in overcoming that tendency is to always recollect the Guru. And in your question, by implication, you brought up an issue that Guru Rinpoche himself described in one of his often quoted and perhaps more humorous criticisms of human foibles. When he said, let's see if I can make it sound as funny in English as it is in Tibetan. I mean, it's serious, but it's funny serious. So laugh, but then be serious. When you're riding through an even plain, when you're happily riding through an even plain, you sing songs, ah la la. But when you suddenly come across an abyss by surprise, you scream out, Guru Padma! That's the way we are. And, you brought that up in your question. And the only solution to that, to overcoming that tendency, which obviously we all have, otherwise Guru Rinpoche wouldn't have talked about it, is to try to recollect the Guru in every situation, whether we feel bad, good, or indifferent. And what goes along with that is the need to see everything as your Guru's kindness. Now, it may be easier for us to see happiness and things going right as the Guru's kindness. We feel good, so we feel, oh, I can thank the Guru. Thank you, Rinpoche, thank you. Because we feel good. So we kind of have the extra energy to do that. But Lama said we have to do that same thing when we feel really bad. And when we feel that things are not going right. It's not that it's the Guru's fault that we feel bad. It's that it's the Guru's blessing that through feeling bad, we can purify ourselves. We feel bad because of our own previous actions, not because of the Guru's blessing. But it is through the Guru's blessing that we can use feeling bad to purify our previous actions, rather than perpetuating them. So therefore, when we feel bad, we should also think it's our Guru's blessing giving us an opportunity for purification. You quoted Gotchen Rinpoche as saying that a loving heart with bodhicitta is sufficient. That's very, very true. And in fact, to the point that we can't totally even separate bodhicitta and love for beings from our devotion. Because if you think about it, if to the extent that you give rise to bodhicitta, you will naturally have appreciation and gratitude for where you heard about it. You heard about bodhicitta. You generated bodhicitta because of your Guru. So therefore, it's almost automatic that when you cultivate bodhicitta, that will also bring recollection of the Guru into your mind. But bodhicitta has many other benefits as well. One of the hardest things for any of us is working with the community, any community, whether it's the community where we live, a community of practitioners, or, for example, in your case, a horrendous community of those who are imprisoned. And the only way we can work effectively with others in a way that will really help them, because we'll really want to help them, is with love and bodhicitta. And I think if someone really has a bodhicitta, they can actually have a strong effect on the community in which they work, even in as short a time as 1 week. So, kindness, gentleness, these things are natural fruits of the power of bodhicitta. I would caution you about one thing, however. You cannot always be in hell. You have a flesh and blood body, you need rest, you need food, and so don't think that when, after spending a day working in hell, that you are somehow copping out or reinvesting in some sorrow by relaxing a little bit once you get home. All of us still need that. Whether we work in as horrendous an environment as you do or not, all of us still have needs, and we have to respect those. Otherwise, we won't be able to keep going. Now, this is not a permanent situation. When we eventually completely eradicate fixation on a self, we will have no needs. We won't need anything. But until we do, we can't pretend to. It just won't work. There is a process, of course, through which we can reach that. It starts with recognizing the equality of yourself and others. That each and every other person is as important as you and wants fundamentally what you want. And then, once that's stable, you go further and you start to see others as more important than yourself. Principally because there are so many of them. And then finally, you are able to really exchange yourself for others, which means put yourself in others' place, put others in your place. And yes, doing this, recollection of the Guru and the cultivation of bodhicitta, this is what is meant in our text by arranging good interdependence, or arranging interdependence in the right direction. So, which means I have to talk about what the opposite is. The opposite is very simple. It's when we snipe and complain all the time. And we all are capable of that. You know, we all can just shrink into a little bit of self-absorption. And when we do that, then we can't work with others. We can't be effective. And we're not happy. You know, we can't. So that is incorrect arrangement of interdependence.
Moneri tatega te chorang ke nyamnyong ke thuni chorang ke chowa ke thuni nyamnyong one chowa ke thuni ngarang ke nyong ne ngarang ke nyamsu nyong ne le ka le ne te nyamni la ba ne ko trawa jam ne trawa te la trawa tramo ri te trawa te la sancho ke sem gom ne te ndra na ndari yinping ke sancho ke sem tongni tawa gom na ndari so ke ngone le ka ngus le ne gom ne dito le trawa le ne trawa te la trawa mandra ba ri te as pe tho ni ma lobjang te se ve ta ste sa ven da je dan da je da trawa ne te la trawa yo ri te ko sam drondo ju le drondo nge so drondo ju te nyamnyong ke te ni sa de ne de dog nyong de ne ngara ka le jab ya le ke trawa te la pe trawa mandra ba ri de pe tu ji chi.
Well, thank you for your question. Your question, it was based on your experience. Actually, very difficult, somewhat painful experience. And you know, questions are different. They have a different kind of taste or flavor. And experiential questions, when any of you ask questions that are based on your authentic experience, something you've gone through or are going through, they taste different from, for example, scholarly questions. When someone asks a scholarly question where they're trying to work out an abstruse point of doctrine or dharma, that has a taste, but it has a different taste from when people are asking about experience. Next.
Next. Oh, yeah.
Here's one that's pretty similar and probably answered by Ilya's question. But Michael Grabau, I'm a nurse on a cancer floor surrounded by dying patients and burnt out nurses. I'm trying to juggle the Dharma between all this. Can Lama give a few short direct reminders of the moment? So he said afterwards it was answered by what Lama said, but...
All right, anything else he wants to add?
Yeah.
The ngomang posa Michael Dwa in a yoring days Michael Grabau.
Oh,
Tata ko menyo Johnson. Ko menyo ke
menyo ko menyo Johnson thing ko menyo
sometimes my accent can be a little misleading. Didn't ko menyo Then ko menyo like a lesa the cancer dopo na she pacha Nyingpo dao ke nepa changchang ke menyo like a legedo. Menyo shenda yang sama ke te utuk ne the choa mompoto ne konso utuk sons korangi dampichu la samne kon the semshu mashova gang tuk tuk zogiyote de kola soya de danga nanju da kandwe
다 디콜 송야 베 게치 효래 다데 초랑 거 고갑 잠버리 고갑데 투사 나야 세니 말이 특바 쳔보가 람냠슬린 제다 가레나 담비치 냠슬린 야 고갑 야휴데 초랑 거 메요데리도 데나 네바 다미 제사 네바 네가 갑레 쳔본 트디리 든르리데 탐지 초랑 거 라포 찍보라 삼노 자와니는 마동 두추 찍보라 nga 두추 조 차성한 로케엔산에 삼노 못동네 혁 자도네 대소라 오네 닝지 쳔보근 더소 백갑레 쳔보른 더소 최소를 자는 집인데 건 더소 오네 최소 nga 라호 장게 더코만 더소 최소를 자는 거들이 삼네 삼행제 산적의 센 규모마인 바로 곰도네 레가 레제더 트리저다 깨자 히저다 되니 적지저 대 두추 담장 위도네 고갑데 투사 못동네 다데세야 데 산조 스마탐제게 레가 혁치야 데르 무소 공적도네 레가 레마도 요자고들이 nga 라호 잠나 nga 라호 기치데 연산 레가 레데나 레데 초란 라호 라기 기치데 라호 잠나 포 잠나 못디는 더소는 오닝에 다리 고갑데 투라마단 로바 자케 산네 나라나 셈나 셈표 너바 적지 세데나 라마 control 소와 양양 덤네 냠린의 센도 냠린의 라린 센도네 산조의 셈곰도네 다코 레가 레나 코란초라 핑크레데 디게 초랑게 냠린나 할레바케 산조의 센도 본도레 그레데 고갑장보리 다데 든세.
Well, I would add to what I said in answer to the previous question that as a nurse working on a cancer floor, who's also a Mahayana practitioner, you have a tremendous opportunity because you have an opportunity to really live the Mahayana, to not just think about it, but actually put it into action. So remind yourself that this is a precious opportunity, that you're not just, you didn't you're not just doing this job for the salary. You're doing this job, I mean, you need to survive, you need the salary, but you're also doing the job because it's a very real and very needed form of Mahayana service. You're serving those who are among those in the greatest need. And so you're not just trying to keep people comfortable or keep people cheerful or amused. You are actually trying to save or preserve lives. And even when that's not possible, you are trying to improve on a very real, very physical and mental level the quality of the end of these people's lives. So remind yourself at every opportunity that this is the best possible opportunity for the real practice of Mahayana Dharma.
Ta doctor seya te ta neo seya te la pe kokap sambo le nyamni sejina te nyamni seli ko kokap chikhu te te ni la ori te te la te ne sanjo ko sem ju hyok chimbo ngone chen ro le ta te pe ya bori.
Doctors and nurses and other health professionals who have the probably the best opportunities of any of us to really practice, to do the real thing, if they take advantage of it.
I would like to ask a question from the internet, if I may.
Okay.
Beatrice Lin, Lama, how should we approach AI, artificial intelligence? More people are finding that it is giving answers to life questions more quickly and depending on it more. It does not feel right. I hope my question, not too off topic, just struck me that when he talked about choosing a guru, it seems like many are choosing ChatGPT.
Okay. AI seba de gongudwe. Tata jume rikpa. Ngone re de ngone yana mina tata ngatso hako gumdo. Ngone semjin yana pache semjin member ta yana.
Semjin samare o.
Mongche semjin mare. Da danla dingsong Beatrice ki dresong. Dingsong mi mombo ki dela tuwa tri. Dene lend it's on Yang Yore. That Jua Samsung Konsoki Mitse Drotonga Kola Jua Kalchimpo Yang Della Drigores. Della Yinkam in the way.
Tatela Trava Jalikapso stupid rini mangara. Ngara Kopa Marine. Ngara Hirab Yubaton Trava Jamna. Chorang Hirab your visit use for Kotkin when the Yapo limited. Just stupid again that I call Karelin Jang Hako Mari. See, I at the Karen Hako Mari. And sometimes to so Tamala so get the Zambul cat as a chata, Lin, Nimbel Catila, there's a Panza Vigina. Telang Aranga Hako Tokeri take and one think and out of Madoso. Kogan the amount that do something in Kamari. And neck up the Pimbaraka, Travakare Jamna, Lin Jatokere, take a Lin Jakando, near Hakos at the Lin Jacote. Tartoke Devades, Hanji Matonga, so such a Tin Tokamari, Mazako Sanji Trabayan and Yemihi, Sanji Trabanawatamji, Chich and Taleni, that's a they said Jamjo, Somi Chipero, zoning it Sanjela, Tebaji, Tamji Nasoko Trogazon at Tebaji, Tamji Lamrim bodies on a Tebaji, Teta, the son Netan Kari, Kantarian Tela, Tawajali Capsula, Narala, Hirab Yubaton, Tawajaji, then Pintona, Pinton the road, a Karaka Pintona, Pintor.
I think the value or danger of AI depends upon the individual use made by the individual user. he uses some frank language here. So, says, if you're stupid and you ask stupid questions out of stupidity, your AI is going to reflect your own stupidity. And your AI will just give you more stupidity. If you're smart and you ask smart questions out of smartness or intelligence, your AI will reflect your intelligence. That's what I've seen, that's what I've heard. So I think to that extent, especially when we're talking about, ephemeral, mundane things that are ephemeral and so on, then its value and danger depend upon the intelligence with which we use it. It's not going to reveal in an omniscient manner the past, present, and future. No AI can replace the Buddha. Now, I suppose you could say, but is it not possible that some AI could be an emanation of the Buddha? Yes, if you have the pure outlook that sees everything as an emanation of the Buddha or the emanation of a guru, then the AI you use might also be part of that. But that's a different situation. And again, that goes to the same question of again he said, if you make a stupid use of AI, it's going to be a whole stupid deal of stupidity. Yeah.
Then ngala nyamnyo sarpar talo lepso. Kare lepso nga jana mene rongkana de goma chen rongkana de nga phai ma de te chala leso te chala de nga chamote konzo jagi jai chachang khiri a central mo ko nge ten order tang do chora la koronga chora goha de chin ni ris nge ma yimbar ge chin ko da tin te zare de aha se a de chora te Churjak mag chin koris.
Yeah.
Churd gona zamris. Then konang chol kabar tankeris. Then chol go see the cock kurde leb doris. Net de zemola. Konga net nima hikidakima yukunga down sulinika you check it out. Akates Sandra Gomari chona hakoro jagites hero Sandra Gomaris. Then in age current the lamb could not talk that Jurgogan you. Hotel. Hotel Madin and Rakao Maringa, your passport. Toza Jurgogan you. Topgyal, then a current lamb, Tinga Semdela, Kimtandari, this thing that part they call Kapartank and Ronka get a little thing, a giant. I'm Chichi Rain Lock and Churjak Mayens, Chorang Jalang Jinkus, Chorang Gohalang lemons, they doing a go down, Choranga go city, Jalapa long. Dan Trujaro. Dan can't let the lamb goes a cage and Oya, then a couple Magi. There's a Kamajo Saridi. Young Yanja Mari go the little nigga. Current it in a sewing lavia. Not Trujak May, Choran Jalak on the Gohala use. Ah, Tanga, darling, is a Kale. Go to Chesia, Churjat and the left it. Churjak met and the left it.
Chung
Chung Sari, though, called left it. Ta Karigo, the near goats are Karigo on the tin, the Kunga Hakondo.
Yeah.
Ta Chorangeti Nin Openchila, Choranjalanga Kubana or it in Gose and Choranga Palong Laukando. Near the Karion open the Chenia, Z the Gose and Nejalatinando. Nejalatala. Tajunga good pa job laukando. Nge turn off way, go pa jaza. Then the baby, Tangan Roke yen laukando. Canada do not depart. Go elevator on the Takan, don't coach ham road. Yeah. Nga hales, the Najala top. Then the Nyamyon, the Mamba can't chang, Hakusamari.
I had a funny experience when I was in China. I was staying at a hotel on the 19th floor, and I had left something behind on my travels, so I called my niece and I said, can you arrange to have it delivered to my room, to here at the hotel? And 'cause easy for you, you speak much more Chinese. And she said, oh, I'll have it brought right to your door. Someone will bring it right to your door. And I said, but I don't speak very good Chinese, so if that person comes to the door and I can't communicate with them, won't they get mad and beat me up? And she giggled. She said, Uncle, I guarantee the person who brings you the whatever it was, he didn't say, is not going to beat you up. You'll be fine. Your Chinese will work. So I was in my room on the 19th floor, and the phone rang. So I picked it up, and a voice said to me in Chinese, hi, I am, now I don't know since it's Chinese translated into Tibetan, so I don't know if you'd say I am a robot or I am a mechanical person. I said, hi, I am a robot. I am going to shortly be coming to your room. I will knock on your door and let you know, and will bring you your article, whatever it was. And I thought, and then somewhat stunned, I said, okay, and I put down the phone. And I thought, okay, well, how's this going to go? How's this going to work out? And around, maybe 10 minutes later, the doorbell rang. And so I opened the door, and there, sure enough, was a robot standing there, I'd say about maybe, half to 2/3 human height, and said, whatever, clearly recognized me, and said, hi, I'm a robot. I'm here bringing you your lost article. It's in my belly. Please open me up. So, so I pressed the button that it indicated, and the belly slid open, and I pulled out my thing, and it said, okay, I'm going now. Please turn me off. And so I pressed the button to turn them off, and the thing closed back up. It turned around, and I thought, now where's it going to go now? And I watched, and it went right straight over to the elevator banks and waited for the elevator and got into the elevator and took the elevator down to the floor. So I don't know how this is going to end up, but that's what I experienced.
We don't know future.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Travis, this will be the last one.
Thank you very much, Lamas, and thank you, Ilya, because I didn't have any questions until you had yours, which was kind of the same. So I kind of went through a similar experience given the events of last November, in a slightly different way. So for a long time, I've always had this thought, given the Bodhisattva vow, we need to try and make things better and help people around us. And after November, that illusion kind of was shattered because things aren't going to get better, at least I don't think anytime soon, and probably not within my lifetime. So it left me in a spot where, well, what do I do? Pretty much the only thing I have left is practice. But the problem is, I want to make sure that doesn't kind of break the Bodhisattva vow, right? Because whatever I can do to help other people, it's kind of like handing out glasses of water in a burning building, right?
Right.
They might feel a little bit better, but we're all burning. And it's not going to get better as far as I can tell, and not anytime soon. So it's a bit of helplessness. And then on the other hand, my practice is I'm not going to help anybody in the near term either, as far as I can tell, because I don't have any, I sit there and meditate. So I'm just wondering, is this hopelessness breaking the Bodhisattva vow, and if so, how to fix that?
Kongi de ngoma Elia ge da.
Zazo.
Kongi de ngoma ge samla da ngata tsama ge Gyamtso sempe domba long tsawa yinze de nyamlen zoshin de nishin da la kangtutu ropo zogo dos. De jena ngatso ge election look pompo dokpo de jongzane de ne tets rawa chakson. Da ngone ge memang ge netsu de dok drogodo. Samno tonga na de ne ta lo kashe ke batala dok takchure. Pache ngarang mitsela yakting ke rewa sheda mendos. Dayana Nyamlan Zogio. Nyamlan Zoya de Musa Nalapengido. Mi Shendak la shoot la pengere in a data lamsam pengamento. Maombala Derbu Mato Gabata Shita Mi Shendak Musa Pentugamentos. They into they give Jungju Sempe Domba Nyamdrogere.
Sanjo Samba Domba taking Yam Kamari. Sanjo Samba Domba said the Simji Luton, Monetaneg, Simji Luton, a cook, Kari Yena, Naga called Pimata, some cook, Kari Mago Karis, and you call it to Namyang, called Pimata, some Nireke, Lutan, you just take Sancho Samba Doma, the Tawa in Yam Colimato. They Mato, they are in Dragman, control on it, the Sosa Sancho is sent new Zambogel pay long, let you Zambol pay long, so Chakari, the soy and sojo, Sotarga Domba no Mari. Sancho Samba Domba, the Tendrishin, sojo, Tapungi Saria, the Matapari. Pombo Zangi Mambore, Hamo logic tenia, Jong Yongari. Matapari, Consola, Ta Controyama, Koran, Levang and Hindu call it. Koran, when you let them Molam Loba Topgyal take a scene, the Koran Raman Lachin Yomari. The new retailer. Nga control on you. Tangi Hako and the leg, some not tongue, Pombo Dokjanda so right. Koran Mama let them one of Dokjata. Then our chupa number taba chus tramu dragon kitela, Ninga ori dandanda. So Tujan the Yabor Sematomna, Tandra King in Bar and Tina, Molam Lobar Tabiana, Giva Samala, Tandrajaka, Pongita, Tichu the top take a lang in Batic, Ling in Balan, Simji Mambo, Nunce Sinki, Giva Mambo, the Indrocori. Then also logit and orange. Then there see me go, Simjila Katina Pinta, Takora Matabari. Kona kare dina America bombola loja in do chokamari, losam do chokamari. There's America, there's Amer Murri Rimato, Kanzari Rimato, America Jakab Chimbori. Then we get some stupid to read or Manjara Chimbo Temdomari. Then Nyamajela America Sonam City Omari. Nyamajega Pombo Yagara left secretary, Tindimikite, Gare. Chimbo Chungal and Jori, Jakab Chungal and Jor, Jakab Chungal Jarbo Chimbo and Jor, Masopo Tumble and Jor Tumble Sopol and Jorzo, Jorot Matapa, Keja Hiko, America Tata Jakab Chimbo, Tandrika Sonam City, Jakamari, Ko Pombong in Bare, Con Yondo Koli, Tela Samba and Hinja Gomyari Mato, Ko Lang in Bari Lung in Balang the Oliri, Koanga so Pamasi Yonri, Tela Samba and Hinja Gomvi, take a pin as a control and Pinkamari. Then the Narange Simji Mambola, Pinkasi Tatum, the unit Tajuri, Nusatam, the Teritatam, and Simji Mambola, Pintato, Molaya Boja, so Nyamnesia, the Pekachim body, Semsamazo, Nyamnesia. Then the Gypsum Malare, but relative dinner, Mug Pajagate and a Kona, Chunda drum the Popan and Zudo Mado, Simjiga don't drum the Kakon Rohamada Samne Olite. Don't move it any Tata Malare Bagdronoches, a Yomari, Zamlan Digan. Pombo Dogatamjiga, Malare Bala Pego called it, Malare Banda Chubagona, Malare Banda Goyo. Then our must have your talk called it. Then the Soso Nyamnesia, the Tujada, maybe Peke Chimbori, take a Sancho Samba, the Lachi Domba the Tonko Mari, the Sancho Samba Domba Tonya Mari.
No, that doesn't violate the Bodhisattva vow. The way that we usually, or most easily, break the Bodhisattva vow is when we exclude a being from our bodhicitta. It's called mentally abandoning sentient beings, but it doesn't mean all sentient beings. It means any sentient being. It's when we think, even if I have the opportunity to help you, this being, in the future, I won't do it. No matter what happens, I won't help you. It's when we make an exception, we exclude someone from our bodhicitta. And we have to be careful about that, not to think of someone as so reprehensible that we don't aspire to their future happiness. That's something we have to watch out for. Remember that the Bodhisattva vow is like a container of fine silver. as opposed to, let's say, the clay pot of the pratimoksha vows. When a clay pot falls or is smashed, it's broken and it can't really be fixed, not the way it was. But silver gets dinged very easily. So we do ding our bodhisattva vows from time to time, and that's why through practice we hammer them back into shape. As for feeling outraged by politics, many of us feel this. I've felt it from time to time. One thing we have to remember is impermanence. Bad leaders come and go. And the first thing we have to make sure as practitioners, and especially Vajrayana practitioners, is not to become invested in hatred. Because if we allow ourselves to hate and make bad aspirations, this can actually, through the power of our practice and the misdirection of our aspiration, and this has happened historically sometimes, several times, we can be reborn as something we don't want to be reborn as, and then again and again, and it would harm others. In general, those who are in a position to harm others, whether human or otherwise, and powerful in doing so, have accumulated merit, but then misdirected the merit through negative aspirations. So we have to be careful not to make negative aspirations. Another thing to remember is the people of this country are not stupid, he said. The people of this country are not stupid. As far as, what you need to do in order to fulfill your bodhisattva vow, well, of course, naturally, when you're in a position to help someone, whether it's an individual in a minor or major way, whether it's a group, a small group, do what you can. We always, under any circumstances, have to accept the fact that there are limitations on what we can do at the present moment. And that's going to be true no matter how good things are or no matter how bad things are. The situation is the same. There are always limitations. So we do what we can. But beyond that, your fundamental service to beings is your practice. For example, during his lifetime, especially before he accepted students, when he was primarily meditating in isolation, in solitude, you wouldn't say that Jetsun Milarepa was a tremendous social influence at that time. He wasn't actively interacting with many people and benefiting their lives or ameliorating their situations. And yet, 1,000 years down the line, if you look at the influence that Milarepa has had and the effect he's had on so many people's lives since then, he's probably done more for other people than almost anyone in Tibetan history. So don't discount the value of practice as a way to serve others in the long term. We're out of time, so we need to stop.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Good questions. damje zeba ni done nyimbe dana bamze nim jega nanje bala roba sipen zolen rowa yo gewan de ye jewo ga zona yige zozo sona yige le zawe tamba kunye doba yo sanjo sene rumbo je maje bana je jiba nyamba me bada kone kondo bewa yo zemje damje deda denje ngiro damje dada tomba yo sanjo samba kanda saryo deda kanje mola raba yo sanje reje zenze dambe ga jargan de dan de lemba sabye me zo de sanga ju si ye sonda jabe ro ye yo.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Okay, thank you, everyone. See you tomorrow. Yeah.